Jamie mentioned about the live broadcast. Our TriCaster's down, so we won't be live, we'll be recorded.
Okay.
So we'll get message out. There's some bodies where commissioners watch, or electeds watch Facebook while they're conducting.
Yeah, close enough.
So, I don't know.
I watched the county, so.
I watch the county.
Well, I'm still working.
Small city, maybe? Do you watch the county?
I watch the
I
county.
also watch your, it's the, your meeting.
Well, I watch yours too.
Oh, Priscilla. There she is. It's 1 o'clock, and on Tuesday, May 18th, regularly scheduled city commission meeting. Madam Clerk, do we have a quorum?
Yes, ma'am.
It's my turn to do the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us all together safely today as we conduct our meeting. Thank you for the recent moisture that you have provided us in nourishing our lands. Please watch over us and lead us and guide us with wisdom as we make decisions to lead our community in a positive direction. Please watch over all the first responders as they go about their business and duty in keeping us safe and keeping the peace in our community. Also watch over our military personnel, not only locally but also overseas, as they protect our freedom. In this we pray. Amen. All right, approval of the minutes. Any changes? I didn't see anything. Oh. Stand approved as they are presented. Public comment. This is a time that we put in the meeting for anybody to provide us any information or ask questions or present us with information on anything that's not on the agenda. We give you 5 minutes, and I know, hold on, I have to get through my speech, Donna. But please state your name for the record as you come to the podium.
Donna Gershner. I'm here to report to you from the Garden City High School Resist chapter that we did a park scan during the week of Earth Day. And we went to one of the same parks that we scanned before the smoke-free, tobacco-free ordinance went into effect in the parks to see if we were making headway by putting that ordinance in here in Garden City. And so after the kids got done doing the park scan, what we found at Harold Lawn Park, after 45 minutes, which was the same amount of time we did before, we wanted to keep everything on the same level, same amount of kids, we only found 33 cigarettes.
Oh, wow.
Versus last time we found 242 cigarettes, 1 lighter, and a package. So, it's working! So, I thought it would be nice to let you guys know that these ordinances do work, even though some of them may not be very popular, but the trash is down. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Donna, for the report. That's awesome.
Anybody else? All right, moving to 6A.
Item 6A, the governing body is asked to consider and approve a request from McKinsey and Ryan Witzke, shaved ice, to be categorized as a mobile food vendor under the itinerant merchant's license category. Sue-Lynn?
Mayor and Commissioners, I'm just going to stay here at my seat. As you know, in November of 2019, the City Commission approved 3 different types of itinerant merchant license, or itinerant businesses. We have your mobile food vendor license, and there's a definition in your packet. And then there's the local itinerant business license and also the non-local. The mobile food was basically for trailer, food trucks. So Miss Witzke, I'm not sure if I say that right, she came to me, we actually started working together in March of 2020, I believe, and then obviously COVID hit and they were not able to do their business. But they are coming today before you to be considered as a mobile food vendor. With the structure that they use, it is not a contained motor vehicle. They are currently set up at the Team Electronics parking lot. I am working with Trent Maxwell, the interim director for NDS, and working with Ms. Witzke about the structure and that kind of approval, but she is here today to speak to you about the contained motor vehicle, and that's her request today. So she's here to speak as well.
Hello.
Everyone,
Welcome.
I don't know what it is you would like me to share. Do you want me to just explain to you my position, or have you been able to?
Sure. If
Okay,
you want to.
so, oh, no, I don't want to take up more of your time, and I don't want to waste more
No,
time. So
you're-
just
you're the
whatever you
most
need
important
from me.
part,
If you have questions, whatever you need.
I could go on, I could continue with the mobile food vendor, the fees, $50 a day, $200 a month, or $600 a year. And currently, the shaved ice cream would fall under the non-local itinerant merchants, which would be $300 a day or $900 a month.
So are you selling your product anywhere else in the business? Are you partnering with a business to where you have a location somewhere else and then that you're just using this as an off location, or is it just separately, totally your own?
It's separate, totally its own.
So, Celine, can you make sure, and so what are they classified now? I've read all through all the terms, but I'm getting a little bit mixed up now. So.
Currently, they would be classified as a non-itinerant merchant license. Because if you recall, the criteria for a local itinerant merchant license is a permanent location of at least 1,000 square feet within Finney County for the last 12 months. And they don't have that as of yet.
And I would say unlikely to. A snow cone business is not likely. Well, okay, so of course we all know about WAMs. But us personally, our financial situation is probably never going to lend to us purchasing a brick and mortar building and putting a business in place, of that kind.
So I have a question. If it is hooked to, so I know it's a trailer, is that correct?
It is.
Okay, so if the trailer is hooked to a motor vehicle, does that make it a mobile food vendor or no?
It doesn't state that in the ordinance.
I think a mobile vehicle is any that has an axle.
Right.
Right.
Well, I'm sure the trailer has an axle.
Yeah, the ordinance says a self-contained, I'm seeing so many words on my page, but yeah, self-contained.
There was
Yeah,
a lot.
there we go. Yes, there was a lot. Yes, sorry. Self-contained motor vehicle. Yeah, so it's a vending trailer, or concession trailer, just like many of our food trucks here in town, but it doesn't have the motor on the front. We just pull it with our truck whenever we need to move it. In an ideal situation, the landlord would allow us to leave it wherever we put it year-round, but we wouldn't use it year-round because obviously the snow cone season is beginning of May to end of July, and we
Not
hope to
approach my
extend it
daughter.
beyond
My
that.
daughter will read it many times. Yeah.
Well, I agree with her.
And there are pictures on the memo also.
I think our biggest concern is that we're just not sure that we can afford the non-local itinerant business license. The Snow Cone Shack is, with any business, we hope to turn a profit, but it's not our number one goal. We're youth pastors, and so we just have a lot of students, and we just like to employ them, and we just really enjoy snow cones. So that was our setup in Winfield, and we've already been told we can't use the drive-through, and so that's more about presentation than it is accuracy. We won't use the drive-through. But we just are not sure that we're going to be able to afford the $900 a month. And the $600 a year is far more attainable for us in our revenue. In future years, we can see what we do revenue-wise. We got the business in 2018. It did really well in 2018. 2019, we left it in Winfield where it was, and we let some business partners manage it. They had floods and natural disasters there that made them have a bad season. And then obviously 2020, we're just at a point that we may lose the business as a whole. We may have to sell it if we can't get open. And so we just don't feel like we can afford the non-local itinerant.
Well, I want to make sure, I really support your, I mean, I love local entrepreneurship. I love that you're employing, you know, especially young people, because this is a place that they can work. I mean, the unfortunate thing is I've tried to think of ways around, you know, this, but there really, I mean, there really isn't a way around this, and I wish there was. But I mean, you know, we spent a lot of time putting these in place, and I mean, it was a lot of time last year trying to figure out, making sure it was fair to everyone. And also, I mean, I know that if you had a place that would sponsor you locally, I mean, you could come up with 1,000 square foot. I mean, that's even partnering with another local business. I mean, it might not be, it could be one of our many restaurants, but I'm just saying, if you could find a sponsor or partner that way, to where you could tie it out, that might be an option, because I thought every option, but I mean, as far as, since it's not motorized and those kind of things, I mean, again, I appreciate that you're here and all the work that you're doing, and especially that you want to be a local business that employs people, so.
And can you help me understand what you mean by finding someone who would sponsor us? What does that look like?
Well, I mean, you could, I mean, if you had a business that you actually could sell out of also, and then this would be an off location, because it's that 1,000 square feet, is that correct?
The 12 months prior. to-
12 months prior.
And the 1,000 square feet.
I'm sorry, I was looking for an idea to help.
No, it's okay.
Obviously,
I think
I'm not helping, so.
That's okay. I think it just seems like, and this is very harsh, and this is not intended to be harsh towards any of you, but I think it just seems like food trucks or us, and I can't speak for the whole thing. I know there was a whole thing, just because when I came to town with a food truck, and being a pastor, I know a lot of people, so I got a lot of input from a lot of people, and so speaking just about my thing, I think it feels like, again, I wish I could think of a better way to say this, but it feels like discrimination or maybe punishment for us not having a brick and mortar of a substantial size, where the only business that we feel that we can afford and operate with, you know, just the time and resources that we're given is our mobile one. And so I think, and then it also seems difficult to come in and start a business, because I can't get the 12 months, you know, of being without starting. And then I just don't even know that there's a way that we could pay rent to someone to use 1,000 square feet of their space to rent, you know, 1,000 square feet to sell snow cones, and then also have a mobile. At that point, we would sell it and start something in a brick and mortar, and we just don't have that money feasibly.
Well, I know when we looked at this before, you know, the commission did a lot of research and, you know, tried to provide the best information and regulations. It was more onerous before we actually changed this, but you know, we provide leeway for one, and then we'll have a nonstop pathway of people out the door asking for waivers on the rest of these things. I mean, I understand where you're coming from. I get that, but you know, we do have regulations in place, and if we do waive one, I can see where we can start waiving multiple others on the 3 different categories. Any other discussion? Or?
No, the other thing is, I do think that there is, like you're saying, it is discriminatory. It is favoring businesses, but also at the same time that is partially purposeful, because they are investing in our community, generating property tax and stuff like that. So not all businesses in that regard kind of are equally weighted. I think that the question is, I mean, the issue is, that's a super nice one, that you have, that's a non-motorized thing, but like you're saying, once you get those exceptions, the not super nice ones, where we're talking about somebody selling out of the back of the truck, something, it kind of falls into the same room. And so that's when we discussed this before, like, where do you make that distinction from food truck to not food truck? And that kind of thing. That's kind of, I think, why we landed on that self-motorized kind of thing, because we won't have a permanent structure that can move and that sort of thing. So I think that's part of that thought. There's also options for county. You can go into the county land, which touches right up against the city in different places. So there's some options there.
And I don't know about the options during Food Truck Fridays.
And Food Truck Fridays.
They buy a one-time fits everyone who comes there, and I mean.
And that would be an exception, I mean,
So during,
you'd be able to
Yeah.
go to that.
so during special events,
Right.
special community events like Beef and Paradise, Food Truck Friday, Fall Fest,
Yeah,
Mexican
totally.
Fiesta, that and Tumbleweed, those are all things that do not require that licensing from the city, that would just require the normal mobile food licensing that they have, and they just have to show that to the coordinators of those events.
Okay. We'll need a motion on this.
I'll move to deny the request to consider the mobile food vendor and require the applicant to consider a non-local business and pay the fees related to it.
There's been a motion. Is there a second? I'll second that. Any other discussion on this item? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay.
Nay.
That passed.
Was that 4-1?
That was 4-1.
Okay.
Item 6B, the governing body is asked to consider and approve the request to allow under section 635 and 6133 the possession and consumption of cereal malt beverages or alcoholic liquors at the Garden City Regional Airport for the first annual Sunflower Classic Benefit Truck Show, June 11th through June 13th, 2021. Rochelle?
Good afternoon. So we have Trevor Walker with us today, as well as some guests of his, and he will be able to come up and answer any questions or provide you any additional information. The first annual Sunflower Classic Benefit Truck Show will be held on airport grounds, specifically on the lands that Scott auctioned, rents from the city of Garden City. About a month ago, the city commission approved an agreement between the city, Walk, and Scott Auction to have Walk be able to facilitate this benefit truck show on that land. So going through the special event request, we're looking at the consideration of the waiver, as Matt said, of the consumption and possession of alcohol and cereal malt beverages. There will be no sale of a cereal malt beverage or alcohol, just the consumption and possession of it, the event. This time, if you guys have any questions, I can bring Trev on that.
Yeah, I have a couple questions.
So she also emailed you guys some flyers that I can pass out some if you guys would like.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, yeah, I'm the founder of the first annual Sunflower Classic Benefit Truck Show. We're using it to benefit a local family in need. I'm part of the National Series, Truck Show Series. The closest one for me is 6 hours away, so I thought it'd be great to benefit the community to bring one here, to bring people to the hotels and the towns. And we have partnering with Parrot Cove, Clarion Inn, and Sleep Inn for discounts, So yeah, the consumption and it'll just be the truck drivers having the alcohol themselves. There will be no sale, like she said, just people bringing alcohol in their own coolers and sitting by their trucks and swapping stories is essentially what we do at the truck shows. We just got back from one this week, and it's a great atmosphere for the kids because the kids love the lights and the horns and stuff like that. So if you guys have any questions.
Commissioner, you said you.
So I'm curious, when you talk about, so the alcohol, so basically any alcohol is allowed, or is it beer and wine, or, because we have something later on that talks about beer and wine specifically, and that works for me, but alcoholic beverages, that's kind of a trigger for me, just, I know that the issues are facing young people with alcohol, and so then when you add kids to it, and you say, all this drinking going on, and I'm not saying anyone's going to drink, but I'm just curious about.
It would just be for the truck drivers themselves bringing their trucks and just whatever it's usually beer, but
Okay.
That's what we've seen at this truck show here, just the truck drivers
Well,
themselves.
yeah, I think the idea is incredible. It's a great, what a neat way to benefit a family. That's, the cause is really neat. So.
Yeah, Garden City's got a huge trucking industry, I'm sure you're all aware of. There's trucks everywhere, so.
I move that we approve the request as allowed under section 635 and 6133, the possession and consumption of cereal malt beverages or alcoholic liquors at the Garden City Regional Airport for the first annual Sunflower Classic Benefit Truck Show, June 11th through June 13th, 2021.
There's been a motion by Commissioner Henry. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Dick. Any discussion on that item? None being, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Aye.
That passed 4-1.
Okay,
Thank you.
Item 6C, the governing body is asked to consider and approve use of Lee Richardson Zoo and the serving of beer and wine on May 27th, 2021 for Leadership Kansas.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Callie Dyer is the chair of the Leadership Kansas 2021 event. She's put together a nice agenda, which we included in your packet for your review, so you can see all the stops that they're taking and all of the wonderful things that they're taking in while they're here. On May 27th, they would like to have dinner along with wine and beer just for their group at Lee Richardson Zoo, and then they would be taking a walk over to the big pool to take a tour of that, and the city will be doing a presentation for them on kind of the whole process, the engagement process all the way up to us opening here in a few weeks. So this request is for them to be able to be allowed to serve that beer and wine, and everyone in the Leadership Kansas class is over 21.
And we've done this before for this type of.
We have, yeah, so typically the request comes called Taste of Garden City, and we do it down farther into the zoo. This one we're actually doing kind of right on the back area of the FinUp Center, so that we have an easy walk over to the pool. And we're actually just using El Zarabe for food rather than multiple restaurants. It just gets really, unless you have a ton of alumni helping, it can become overwhelming. And so in meeting with Matt and I, Callie decided to just kind of stick with a more simple version of it, but still utilize the zoo, and they'll be able to go into the zoo and actually look at some of the animals and that sort of thing. So it will be very similar to what we've done in the past, but the request is just a little bit different.
Well, I know we have a lot of alumni from Leadership Garden City. I know you're one, and Ali Medina, and several, and so the program, and Matt.
Roy?
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry, Roy.
There's a lot of us.
So there's several of us actually, yeah.
Well, I just want to, it's an excellent program, and I really appreciate that. The thing I love about this one is that you actually list the beer and wine, and alcoholic beverages, that again opens up this huge gamut of what could be possible, what could be served.
Yes.
So I really appreciate you tailoring the response, or whoever tailored the response to the beer and wine, and also that you're letting us know everyone's over 21, and then also that it's just for your group only. So.
Yes, yep, absolutely.
Entertain a motion on this item.
I move to allow service of beer and wine in the zoo for the Taste of Garden City event.
There's been a motion by Commissioner Euler. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Henry. Any discussion on that item? None being, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That item passed. Thank you.
Item 7A, we'd like to take this time to congratulate the graduates of the 2021 Citizens Academy. So I'll invite Jamie up to present this excellent class.
Commissioners. Over the last 8 weeks, we had 15 community members join our Citizens Academy program. They heard presentations from every city department we have. They were also able to tour various locations that the city facilities have. We went to the USC, the zoo, golf course, and the airport. They are a great group of individuals, really engaged, asked a lot of really thoughtful questions, and they were just kind of fun to hang out with every Thursday night for the last 8 weeks. This year's Citizens Academy graduates are Linda Adams, Diana Bard, Ed Bard, Mia Burnell, Mary Bushel, Mary Buckman, Ron Carlson, Devin Fort, Scott Geyer, Matt Geyer, Jeff Karhoff, Vanessa Rodriguez, Jeannie Rupp, Karen Rupp, and Mark Schepner. And at this time, I'd like to invite them up for a picture, if you guys are up for that. We have a couple of them that are coming today.
You want the whole commission, or what do you want? What are you looking for?
If the whole commission is okay doing that, that would be great.
We can do that.
Yeah. So we'll have the commissioners stand in the back, and you guys want to stand in the front?
I know, right?
Sorry.
Watch your step.
Thank you.
You want the commission staff and regular citizens, people in the front. Yeah.
All right. You ready?
Yep.
David?
Can we see Manny? If we cannot see Manny, this is going to be a good discussion.
Yeah.
Windows, windows.
Okay, on three.
And smile, right?
Yeah, smile. Go. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I got it.
Thank you all very much.
We enjoyed it.
Like you said, I was so
Hi, niece. Hi,
What's up?
niece.
What's
Hi,
up?
niece. Hi, niece.
Yeah.
I forgot the camera.
Thank you.
You can say I need as much as you want.
If you didn't say
Watch the time.
It's when you stuck the thing to keep the pole.
You're lucky I had an awful lot of water right there.
All right.
Item 7B, Finance Director Hitz will present changes to the 2021 budget calendar. Melinda?
We had our budget workshop last week, and there are several changes that I just wanted to address to you at this time. Instead of a tax lid that you're all used to, we're going to be subject to a revenue neutral rate. And the way that you calculate that is you take the dollars that were in your mill levy in 2020, and they will put a new neutral tax rate, revenue neutral rate to those dollars, and they'll give you what mill levy you can have using those dollars, not a penny more of those dollars.
Are you saying they as the legislature? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So it takes your estimated valuation that we're going to receive as of June 1st of this year. It's going to be estimated. Then they're going to put the revenue neutral rate to that, and then that's your maximum mill levy that you can levy. If there is a property that could apply for an exemption that was in your calculation for your valuation, they apply later, so they apply in September, and they get their, like an IRB, where you allow to have 75% of the valuation not taxed for 10 years. That is going to throw a real wrench in your calculation. So we've got to be very careful when we look at that revenue neutral rate. So when we look at the calendar here, May 20th is when we get our motor vehicle tax. That's the same. June 1st, we're going to be looking at the funds that we always looked at on June 1st. We are going to add the city audit into June 1st. On June 15th is when the county clerk provides the city's assessed valuation and the revenue neutral rate. So that's when we'll know that number. We'll be reviewing the general fund also that day. If we need to have a special meeting, we can do it on the 29th. That's a normal town hall meeting. July 6th, we're going to still be discussing the city's mill levy rate because on July 20th, we have to notify the county clerk of our intent to levy above the revenue neutral rate. So you pretty much have to have your budget done. Then you need to wait for close to a month in order to have your budget hearing, because those 30 days, the county clerk will be sending out notices to taxpayers of the intent of either Garden City, USD 457, college, anybody that's going to be going above that rate. So they had to build that in. This year, they're not going to have them do that because they didn't give them enough time to prepare, but it's built into the calendar for future years. You can still authorize your budget to be published, so we're looking at August 2nd on that, and then pass the resolution. We need to wait until September 7th to actually have your public hearings because they can't start until August 20th. So August 20th to September 20th is when you can have your hearings. So we set that for the Tuesday after Labor Day. You have to you have to have the public hearing for the revenue neutral rate before the budget. So you have to pass it first. And then you have to have your budget hearing after that. So. And then the deadline to file your budget is October 1st, so it seems like we have.
So they literally made it where it takes a whole year to set your budget. Wow.
So if your valuation goes down, are they gonna suggest a higher mill rate than your current mill rate?
They're gonna base it on dollars.
Right, so if your valuation goes down,
Uh-huh,
the state would suggest you to raise your mill rate?
uh-huh. As long as you don't raise your dollars. It's gonna be based on dollars.
So when you talk about passing the revenue neutral rate, it sounds like you mean, it doesn't sound like we have a choice. Is it you saying we're gonna accept the revenue neutral rate, or we can actually, if we don't feel the revenue neutral rate is correct, or there's some issues with that, we can actually ask for a hearing or
Yes.
a reallocation of that, or a reevaluation?
You can ask to raise it. That's why you would have to have a resolution to raise it. It was the recommendation in the workshop that everybody does the resolution and raises it. Otherwise, if you come in and have a piece of property that comes in with an exemption, you have no control over that. Absolutely no control.
Right, so it sounds like the state is really encouraging everybody to raise their tax rates.
They're recommending that you do it in case you need it.
Well, the policy also seems like. So it's less of what's good for the city, but more what you have to do because of government policy. Do we have anything similar that the federal government is imposing on the state of Kansas? Or is this just something Kansas is imposing on the cities?
I don't know.
Because normally, I'm going back to our calendar, because normally, until now, we were usually done by August, right?
Normally, we have the books closed and everything to the county by the end of July.
July, yeah, that's what I was thinking.
You're right.
But now it's,
Statutorily, I think the October 1 date was August 25th.
right.
So near the end of August. So as far as how will people know what their property tax, so is it gonna still go by mill levies, or, but you're talking about dollars, will we know what 1 mill is worth then, or?
We'll know what 1 mill is worth on July 20th.
Estimated.
June 15th, the estimated number.
So we'll know the estimated number, what it's worth?
Mhm.
And then you take that, apply it to our budget, and it has to be neutral, and then that's what we go off of,
The
or?
dollars have to be neutral.
Okay,
The mill levies can switch around between funds, because we're gonna have a brand new fund that's gonna be
right,
that's gonna be your Parks and Rec.
right.
Mhm.
That's,
So
Okay.
our levies are gonna move around
sure.
for all of our funds. But when we get that revenue neutral rate from the county, that's where you're gonna have to start applying what we've presented to you to decide whether or not we need to pass that resolution.
And then we'll know what dollars we have if we made budget or over or under budget.
Exactly. So I wanted to present those to you so you'd have time to think about it for a while.
Okay.
Well, yeah, thanks for that good news
Okay,
there.
all
Yeah,
right, thank you.
all right, thanks, Melinda.
Item 7C, the governing body is being made aware of our annual distribution from the FINUP Foundation. This year, we received $180,000. Now, $80,000 of that would be characterized as the gift that we received for being one of the endowed recipients of the FINUP Foundation. I believe it's us, the Congregational Church in Washburn University. And so we use that money for improvements to Lee Richardson Zoo, which is in one of the FINUP parks, and then also our Parks Department for improvements to FINUP Park outside of the zoo's boundaries, and also FINUP Scout Park. The FINUPs also occasionally grant other gifts outside of that, and this would be an example of one of those. And so they've agreed to pay for the splash pad improvement to Garden Rapids at the big pool, and they'll do that over the course of a few years. Yeah, but this first year, they gave $100,000 towards that, which is a pretty big portion of that cost. So we really appreciate the relationship with the Phillips and the gifts that the foundation has given to this community over the years.
It's a great gift.
Do you think we could convince that work to stop for a couple hours? That'd be fantastic, thanks. We've got some staff reports on the agenda. Do you have any questions regarding the airport, the development services, the zoo, or the service and finance report?
I had a question on a couple of them, but sure. So on the, I just wanted to, I know that Rochelle was here, I just wanted to hear an update. I know that today she was teasing, she goes, we're getting near terminal, but we are. And I just wanted to hear the progress. I mean, it doesn't, it seems surreal, believe me, but after you see the pictures and the feedback from the community, it is. So I'm just curious where that's at. The report was excellent, but.
Great, yeah, thanks for asking. So we're finishing design. We've had, like any project, we've run into some issues that we've kind of redesigned a couple areas as far as office spaces and the rental car areas to better meet the requirements of the tenants and the efficiencies of the building. So we're really narrowing that down. We're almost completely ready to pick a winner for the future walls. So 2 photos. That's been a very hard process because the pictures were amazing, and then how it, the picture is represented on panels, and then as it spreads across the wall and how it actually looks like a sunset from far, and then what the impact of it up close when you're like standing next to it. So that's been a learning process on how all that works. So we're almost ready to announce that in the next couple of weeks, and then so we're still on schedule. Should be going out to bid in July. We're having the FAA do their review, which takes some time because it is a very large document with a lot of details and making sure we're meeting all the federal requirements with TSA and FAA and everything. So we're on schedule and it's going well.
No, thank you for the
Still
update.
looking at a groundbreaking in October?
Yes, tentatively.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do have a quick question about the employment numbers.
Sure.
If you look at our employment numbers for last month, that's the highest I've seen for that. Is that, why? Are people just turning back to flying?
People
Or
are
is there
ready to
something?
travel.
Yeah.
So April was comparable to other Aprils. The highest month we've had since 2015 April. So we had a really good month. We have a lot of travelers. The golfers coming into the community. The permits have helped. May's substantially pretty busy with college students flying back home. So the airport is healthy at this point. Still following all the protocols of cleaning, trying to social distance as best we can. There is still the requirement for masks in the airport terminal and as well on the aircraft. So those are federal requirements that we're asking the passengers to abide by, and it's looking good. Business is good.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Good job.
Thanks, Rochelle.
The other report I had, Mayor, question on the service and finance report. I thought it was interesting. One of the numbers I had, there was a big jump in, I think it was the sewer and, bring it back up here. Is in on page 2 or 3, I think. But the sewer and the water and sewage revenues, I mean, that was, I'd never seen a bigger jump like that. I just was curious about what that was caused or what that's attributed to.
I think it's really back from shut folks down.
Can you pull that up?
Yes.
The spring.
Yeah, it looked like April was, and I mean, it could be, and if it's a typo, that's fine too, but it was pretty big. It's page 3. One more down. It's water and sewage revenues. See that big spike in the yellow in 2021. I was curious about what that was attributed to.
I would have to say that's an error.
Okay, it was just a really,
because there's no way it could be that high. Melinda's, here comes Fred, maybe he's got that.
okay, I was going to email earlier and I'm sorry I didn't.
When the revenues are up so high in that month, in the last month before, I think that's an error in reporting that.
Okay.
So, sorry about that.
Oh.
We'll find out for sure and let you know.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Overall, everything looked really good.
Really healthy. Yeah.
Anything else from the commissioners? All right.
I think we're ready for meetings of note. Just a reminder of the events next week for the grand opening, and then also that there will be a soft opening, a city staff night. I think the commission's invited to that as well. So
Yes.
we'll need to make note of that just for public awareness. So what is Saturday, May 22nd?
Mhm.
And the time of that is
I think she said
5 to 8.
5 to 8.
5 to 8.
Mhm.
5 to 8 p.m. And that'll be in the big pool. So any of those that require RSVP, please do those through CLIN. I think we're ready for the appropriation ordinance, which if approved, would be 2531-2021A.
I'll make a motion that we approve appropriation ordinance 2531-2021A. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Dick. Any discussion? None being, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That item passed.
Item 10A, the governing body is asked to consider and approve an ordinance adjusting retail water rates to account for increases to utility operating expenses related to increased water treatment costs resulting from the approval of amendment number 3 of the joint agreement for water purchase, treatment, and distribution between the City of Garden City and Wheatland Electric Cooperative, Inc. If approved, it would be ordinance number 2899-2021. Mike?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. As you know, at your May 4th, 2021 meeting, you approved amendment number 3, as Matt indicated, the joint agreement between Wheatland Electric on the water purchase, treatment, and distribution. Amendment number 3 resulted in a 21.1% increase in the cost of the city over calendar years 21, 22, and 23. This is estimated to increase the costs, the city's expense of $345,943 over the 3-year period. The governing body directed staff to present an amended water rate ordinance adjusting retail rates over the same 3-year period at its May 18th meeting, and to bring it back for consideration at this time. The preliminary estimated monthly impact to a residential customer that uses 11,900 gallons per month would see an increase in the first year would be $3.75. The second year would be $1.81, and the third year would be $1.77. And the proposed retail rate increases would go into effect June 1st of 2021. Some alternatives is you could approve the ordinance amending the retail water rates in City Code Section Water Rates 90-177 of the Code of Ordinances. Do not approve the ordinance amendment or direct staff to take alternative action. A fiscal note is that the amending the City Code Section 90-177 water rates will increase revenues by approximately $345,943 over 3 years to cover the increase in costs from the Wheatland Electric Cooperative. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have on any of that.
Any questions?
No, I just want to say I appreciate that we're doing this to make sure that we're just matching that increase. So it's not something that we would have done, but unfortunately with that 21.1% increase.
And we match the same percentage as
I appreciate that.
And that year 3 is in 2023.
Right.
Yeah, not 2033.
The ordinance is correct.
Good, yeah. Entertain a motion for this item.
I move that we approve ordinance number 2899-2021.
There's been a motion by Commissioner Henry. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Euler. Any discussion on that item? None being, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That item passed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item B, the governing body is asked to consider and approve new section 2-39 nomination petition. If approved, this would be ordinance number 2900-2021. Jimmy?
Thank you, Matt. Mayor, Commissioners, good afternoon. Here to talk today about an ordinance that involves local city elections. As you know, there's a filing fee for becoming a candidate for local elections. There is another means of becoming a candidate, getting on the ballot, without paying the fee, which would apply to somebody who may not want to pay the fee, or maybe somebody who cannot pay the fee. This was the status of the law under Kansas statute in 2000, up to 2015, where it required a petition signed by 50 qualified electors of the city, or 1% of the total number of electors from the last general city election. That was changed in 2015 to say that it is up to the individual cities to determine what that number is. And when we had changed the, when all these election ordinance, thank you. I'm out of practice. Yeah. So when all of this was changed back in 2015, this individual part was not. So what this does is the proposed ordinance puts the number of qualified electors back in place at 50, which for our purposes, it's going to be 50 because I think 1% is about 77 people. So that's what this does. And Mayor, Commissioners, do you have any questions on this topic?
Any questions? Entertain a motion on this ordinance.
I move to approve ordinance number 2900-2021.
There's been a motion by Commissioner Euler. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Dick. Any discussion on that item? None being, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you.
Thank you.
No business, no old business. Going to new business. Item 12A. We're looking at considering methods to recover the $10.1 million in additional energy costs.
He's on his way.
Yeah, their mic's coming.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
The February 2021 winter weather event. Give you some history, kind of go through this whole process here again. The extreme winter weather event for 10 days in February of 2021 caused both the cost of electricity and natural gas prices to surge to unprecedented levels, impacting Garden City and the entire Southwest Power Pool's Midwest region. Remember that went clear from Canada clear to Texas. The energy cost rose as high as $3,000 per megawatt hour, from what was generally in the $20 to $40 megawatt hour range. This 10-day event cost the city of Garden City approximately $10.1 million over its typical monthly cost, and was over 50% of the city's annual cost for electricity. The governor, Finney County Commission, and the city commission declared this extreme weather event as an emergency during that time that it took place. Fortunately, the Kansas legislature made available emergency low-interest loans to communities that were impacted by this event. The governing body authorized staff to apply for a loan to cover the approximately $10.1 million energy cost impact that Garden City experienced. The city was granted the low-interest loan of 0.25% for $10,074,199.15 to be paid back over a 10-year period. This loan can be paid back at any time without penalty, and the city agreed to make payments of $500,000 every 6 months. That was part of the agreement with the loan. The governing body also approved a power supply contract. It was energy only with NextEra Energy for a 15 megawatt energy capacity only, for a 15-year period. And the city also received a pre-delivery payment of $10 million with this contract at an increased megawatt hour rate, which translates into, if you were to run the interest, it would be about 6.5% interest on that. This contract can also be paid back at any time with no penalty, and will lower the megawatt hour charge to the city accordingly. So instead of paying the higher megawatt hour charge, we'll go back down to the lower amount. The electric utility did not have the cash reserved to cover the $10.1 million in additional costs, nor can it absorb the repayment of the state loan or pay down the megawatt hour charge of the NextEra Energy contract without collecting the $10.1 million one way or another to make the required payments. Staff researched what the impact would be if each of the city's 11,500 electric accounts were to be charged for their portion of the added costs over and above the monthly average usage over that 10-day event. These costs would vary anywhere from $0 to people that were out of town or had their account off, to as high as $2,173 for a residential customer, and from $0 to $24,886 for a commercial account. If the expenses were averaged across all residential accounts, it would be approximately $268 each, and if averaged over all commercial accounts, it would be $4,806 each. Those amounts could be collected at one time. They could be spread out over time. Another option would be to consider as a simple increase in the kilowatt hour charge to all accounts by 1 penny for several years, allowing time to collect the funds necessary and apply to cover the cost of the loan for the energy contract. The total kilowatt hours sold on a typical year in Garden City is 290 million kilowatt hours. Therefore, 1 cent increase would generate approximately $2.9 million annually, and would take roughly 3.5 years to generate the 10.1 million to pay back the low interest loan to the state of Kansas, or buy down that energy cost in the next DERA contract. If additional kilowatt hours were to be sold annually, then the time frame would be shortened. A 1 cent per kilowatt hour increase would mean that an average residential customer that uses 700 kilowatt hours a month would see a $7 a month increase. And a commercial account using 5,000 kilowatt hours a month would see an increase of $50. So staff is seeking direction on how the governing body would like it to proceed to collect the necessary funds. Should the low interest loan be forgiven by the state through the federal government's American Rescue Plan, then the governing body would have to direct staff on how to proceed at that time. However, there's no guarantees of anything there. If a direction is given today, then staff will present whatever the governing body recommends at the next regularly scheduled city commission meeting for consideration and final approval. So the alternatives that we listed would be direct staff to prepare the necessary action at the next regular meeting to recover the cost of the February winter event according to the power and energy cost used by each customer, either at once or over a defined period of time. Alternative number 2 would be to direct staff to prepare the necessary action to establish a temporary 1 cent increase of kilowatt hour rate in all electric billing classifications until the state of Kansas loan amount is recovered or repaid. We would recover that money. The third alternative would be to direct staff with a combination of the 2 alternatives above, or some other option that we had not identified. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions that I may be able to.
Any questions for Mike?
Well, I was struck by the power of a penny. That was amazing. So I'm curious, so as far as, we talk about this, a temporary 1 cent increase. So is it until the 10 million is reached? And then I'm curious about so that's the first question. I should ask another question. But the other question I'd have is, so I don't want this to ever happen again, but if it does happen again, what do we put in place? I mean, how can we protect ourselves or buffer ourselves? I mean, I know that's a lot of money to come up with once, but you can't count on the state or the federal government intervening, knowing that we as a city are responsible to our customers. So
I would say that if you chose to go with the additional 1 cent kilowatt hour charge, you can say that's in effect until we raise the 10.1 million and pay back the Kansas state loan. And then at that time, you could ask staff to come back in and explain to you where we're at with cash reserves. And if at that time they need to be built further, higher, then you could leave that in, you could lower it, you could change it, you could do whatever you choose to at that time. But
that still doesn't address your concern, which is how do you prevent it by blacking out the count.
Yeah, that's
Correct.
When we go 5 days without power, we don't have $10 million bill.
Well, I do appreciate there's an option to pay back the money and then also collect additional if we feel like our funds are not reserved. I mean, blackout is not an alternative or not an option for me, However, raising additional funds to buffer against something like this in the past, I mean, we did do this as a city. A lot of people voluntarily did cut their energy consumption. I mean, commercial businesses and residential.
It's
So,
still 10 million out there.
well, exactly, and I'm not saying that that was a lot of money, but, I mean, I think I like that there's a discussion that we can have once that 10 million is paid back.
Sure. We've received multiple different calls from different people inquiring about what we would do, if we would be all at one time, or a little bit at a time, or any, or nothing all, or none, and, I can't give them an answer.
So right now, when we direct you on what direction we want to take, you'd come to us back and set what time frame would you put this in place? I didn't really see
I
that.
think I could, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I could probably bring back whatever you direct at the next regular scheduled meeting, and have that option ready for you to consider.
Okay. That was my question. Any other questions? I'll make a motion that we direct staff to prepare the necessary action to establish the temporary 1 cent increase to the kilowatt rate in all electric building classifications until the state of Kansas loan amount is recovered.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any discussion on that item? No discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. That item passed. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike, for the great information.
What else mentioned?
Mayor, that was alternative 2, correct?
That was the alternative 2, that's correct.
Checking, thank you.
Yes.
Item 12B, the governing body is asked to consider and approve Confluence to perform master planning services for the Parks and Recreation Department.
Afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. What you have before you is we did a RFQ process to determine a firm to do the master planning process for the Parks and Recreation. Out of that, Confluence was selected. We did have a rather large panel that made the selection, but it is going to touch several areas, including golf, zoo, obviously parks, and rec. So we wanted to have good input from all those areas. So they were definitely led themselves to be the best firm for that selection. 6 overall firms initially submitted a proposal. We whittled that down to 4 for video interviews. Those are the 4 you see before you: the Confluence, Dick Gordon, Green Clay, and Landworks. And then Confluence was selected out of that. So I know Commissioner Nick was on that panel, but I would entertain any questions you might have about that. I had one question. Just I was looking through your notes and was reviewing, but I didn't see where or do you know when the completion of that would be, or what time they set? Because obviously in the notes that you kind of directed them to supply that, but what was Confluence timeline on getting started?
So generally, if we were to kind of hit kind of a mid, so assuming we get the contract negotiated and back in the middle of June or so, which might be lofty, but we're going to try to do that. We're looking at a completion date kind of into January and February. So anywhere from 6 to 8 months. And part of that's going to be determined by the scope of work that we ultimately decide on in that contract.
So that was my question. Is that how you're going to determine? Now, did you set a budget for this item, or you're just going to let them, because I didn't see an amount on
No,
the
and at this time, there's no financial impact. It's going to depend on the depth that we want to go.
Okay.
I mean,
So there'll be lots of options.
Yeah, it could be anywhere from 60 to 120,000, just with the idea of what all's in that scope of work, and we'll work with obviously Melinda and Finance to make sure that we're at a reasonable amount that we can.
Yeah, it's a great. Yeah, this is a great. It touches a lot of very important aspects of our community. So.
Go ahead. You have a question?
Not a question, a comment. I'll check the question.
Did Commissioner Ortiz, do you have another question?
No,
Okay.
I was just going to make the motion to go ahead and.
Hold on.
Oh,
Commissioner Dick had a
Maybe this one follows your motion.
go ahead.
No, I thought they did a very good job. They brought a lot of good players. I mean, it's kind of, you can see how the company works with how they do with the big pool and how they're approaching this part. I mean, they brought a wide scope of partners to the table, and they're going to make sure the experts are dealing with each of those individual things. So that It was there was a lot of good companies, but it was a pretty safe choice to go with these guys with how they did.
Okay. Commissioner Ortiz, now.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to authorize the selection of Confluence to negotiate a contract for completing a parks and recreation master plan.
There's been a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Dick. Any other discussion on that item? None being all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That item passed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item C, the governing body is asked to consider and approve a proposal from Foley Power Solutions to replace 2 stationary emergency generation units at the wastewater treatment plant. Mike?
Or Fred?
Fred?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. We were doing upgrades at the wastewater treatment plant, so this issue came up. And we had been working with our contractor, Walters Morgan. We're going to make some cursory repairs to the generators, just keep the housings in good condition. So we got news from them that as they started doing the paint prep, they were finding more corrosion than we or they were comfortable with. So that's what we're discussing today. During the execution of those repairs, we found that the cost of repairing the generators was going to be a significant amount of what the replacement value would be. The proposed cost to repair the generator at the Headworks building is going to be 74% of the replacement cost for the generation unit. And at the solids processing building, the repairs represent 62% of the replacement cost of the generation units. And in addition, the unit at the solids building, we're finding some trace quantities of coolant in the other systems, so that indicates we'll have other repairs forthcoming. Staff has considered the age of these units and believes the replacement of the stationary generation units in these 2 locations is warranted to ensure reliable backup generation available for the wastewater treatment plant. So the city has obtained pricing for replacement units using a cooperative purchasing model, and the name of that organization is Sourcewell. They're a governmental unit of the state of Minnesota, and they operate a nationwide competitive purchasing program that solicits proposals on a wide array of services and products. Sourcewell has evaluated multiple emergency generation vendors and determined that Caterpillar Incorporated submitted the best price and value for stationary emergency generators. And then I've attached a number of supporting documents to this agenda item so you can see their process. Foley Power Solutions is the local servicing dealer for Caterpillar and has provided a proposal to replace both generators using the Sourcewell contract pricing. The cost of the emergency generator for the solids processing building is $158,400. And the cost of the stationary emergency generator for the Headworks building is $70,300. The total cost of both units will be $228,700. Cost is inclusive and represents a turnkey installation and training for staff. The quote also includes modified fuel tanks, so the generators actually sit on top of their own fuel supply. Modified fuel tanks will match the dimensions of the existing generation units, so it will just be a plug-and-play installation. The alternatives we provide is to approve the purchase and installation of the 2 stationary generation units from Foley Power Solutions for $228,700. Another alternative is to repair the enclosures and tanks for existing units at an estimated total of $157,430. The cost of those repairs does not reflect addressing engine issues with the generation unit at the solids processing building. And then lastly, if you choose to reject the recommendation, we can find another alternative for the governing body to consider. Staff recommends alternative 1, approve the purchase and installation of 2 stationary generation units from Foley Power Solutions for $228,700. Fiscal note, this project will be funded from the equipment replacement line item in the wastewater treatment plant, GL code 0803131605001. And the fund balance in in that line item is $345,000. Delivery of the generation units, if approved, would be 22 to 24 weeks.
You have a question, Commissioner?
Is 20 years an expected lifetime for these?
That's what's my question too.
Because it looks like what we got out of them.
Yeah, that we were visiting with, and that was what led us to pursue this as an alternative to repairs. Walters Morgan does a lot of wastewater work, and they felt like that was probably an expected lifespan. There's a couple issues that occur in wastewater treatment settings. First of all, you have gases that have to be, that are present in the environment. And so not only do the units reside outside, which actually probably prolongs their lifespan, but you also have the gaseous atmosphere around there. And that is what was creating the issues with the unit, with both of those units.
So do we put some money aside, knowing that we're going to have to replace this every 20 years?
That is something that we'll be putting in our planning in the future, that we need to plan on that. I think would be in line with a lot of other durable goods that the city purchases.
Well, and I'm sure that the repairs, if they were made, they're not guaranteed for any length of time. So that would be my concern about repairing, which I'm not a fan of. It seems like one has a little bit more life in it with only 62%, but the other one, obviously, at 74%, it's really, its useful lifespan is gone. So.
Yeah. Any other questions? Entertain a motion on this item.
Yeah, I move that you approve the purchase and installation of the 2 stationary generation units from Foley Power Solutions for $228,700.
There's been a motion by Commissioner Andrew. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Dick. Any other discussion on this item? None being, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you.
Thank you.
That passed.
Item, what letter, D?
We're at D.
Yeah, the governing body is asked to consider and approve the Garden City Police Department's request to submit an online grant application to the U.S. Department of Justice for consideration of an FY 2021 Law Enforcement Mental Health and Wellness Program grant. Chief?
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. Rather than read to you, I kind of give you a little bit of background on why we're requesting to submit an application for this grant. We set aside about $8,000 for wellness checkups, physicals, that type of thing. It does not nearly meet the demand for us doing mental health checkups with our officers and account for the trauma that they see every day. And over the past couple of years, we've tried to up our game a little bit, so to say, on that, and taking care of our most precious commodity at the police department, and getting them some peer support if they need it, some counseling if they need it, and somebody to talk to. And then we're moving forward to try to see if we can do mental wellness checks as well. So this application through the Department of Justice would allow us to put in for this grant. It would award up to $125,000. It's a 2-year grant. There'll be 57 of them awarded total throughout the United States, and there's no match financially from the city. So it's a good deal should we get the grant, but it's probably pretty competitive. Unfortunately, because I'm sure that there's a lot of law enforcement agencies that are looking out here for you, or for this. We have to put in for the grant online, and it would happen at the end of the month. And then we sit back and wait, like with all of our other grants through the Department of Justice. So our alternatives are approve the request, and then on the flip side of that, reject the request, and we'll go back to the drawing board. I'll answer any questions that you guys have, and if I don't, I promise I'll get the answer.
Entertain a motion on this item.
I move to approve the request to submit the grant application.
There's a motion by Commissioner Euler. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Ortiz. Any discussion on this item?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Has there been any talk of, instead of bringing all our police officers out to Kansas City, if we just bring that one position to Garden City?
Unfortunately, she's really, really busy.
We could give her a plane.
I'm sorry?
So we could give her a plane to come out of it.
I wish, we've actually had discussions about that, not for an entire department, but case by case. And Dr. Prohaska is her name, and she's very busy with the metro area and taking care of that, and she fits us in when we need her. And this would allow us to schedule out in advance, so get on her calendar, so I wish that was something.
No, I'm not gonna, that would be turn on the interest of Kansas City anyway, to have some fun.
It's a great question.
But I just wanted to say, paying attention to the mental health of law enforcement officers is super important. And so there is a lot of trauma out there, and the more that you read the newspaper and know that they're in the front lines and see things that we don't see and know things that we don't know. And so this is really important. And I'm hoping that our position and what we do as the excellent team we have already in place really ups your application. So I'm totally supportive of this.
Any other questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. That item passed. Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief. On item E, we're going to review the next set of funds, so I'll invite Melinda up. She can take my place here, and we're going to review the enterprise and support funds.
Before I get started on those, I didn't hear the question that you had on why water revenues were so high. Was that the question?
Yeah, they indicated it was a mistake, so.
No, it wasn't.
Oh.
We actually billed Empirical for the first portion of their development costs.
Okay,
So
it was
the water
huge,
fund was actually 2.1 million.
Okay.
Wow. So,
because the spike was, I've never seen something.
so that's what it is. So so we filled that out.
Well, I like that much better than,
Yay.
That was a lot of revenue.
And there will be more of that money coming in, but that is the biggest billing that we'll be doing.
Sure.
So you do have an orange tab in here before I get started.
So what you're saying, going back to that, we'll see bigger numbers in that area then.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So be prepared.
I'm excited.
It'll stay at that.
I'm excited.
Okay.
You will see an orange tab on your meeting of April 20th. We made some changes to street maintenance and also street operations and special traffic way due to the bids that we got on street repair material. So we've adjusted that. Just wanted to point that out for you. Okay, so now we're on the May 18th tab. We're going to be looking at fund number 67. Here, this fund is the capital reserve. We set this up when the Jameson Energy Center was developed, and we felt like this reserve fund would be a good future use of equipment reserves. We carried in $4.412 million into the fund in 2021. But I do want to call your attention to the 2020 actual. We were not able to transfer any funds from electric into here due to, we did the utility rebate, and we didn't get any money back on that from Spark. We were hoping to put that money back into here, and that didn't happen, so there was no funds put into fund number 67 in 2020. So we're trying to make up for that with the loan money that you just recently received from the state of Kansas. So instead of $750,000, that is the normal transfer, we're putting in 1.5 in there for 2021 and then going back down to the 750 in 2022. So there's somewhat of a use of your loan money that we're utilizing. That'll have the carryover into 2022 at $5.9 million, and we're going to be closing out the year in 2022, hopefully with $6.68 million. Any questions there? Okay. Okay, so fund number 68 is the operating fund for the electric department. Unfortunately, the money that we carried over into 2021 was only $97,000. Normally, it's usually 3 months of your revenue, which is close to 4.5 million. So we're having to make that up. The collections in 2021 we're showing at 31 million. As you can see in 2020 actual, it was 28.4. So we're looking to add some new customers in there and hopefully a little bit of a rate increase that you just recently discussed for 2021. Then we're going into 2022 with a $2.5 million increase in revenues. That's going to be new customers and rate increase. It could be a little bit more than that, but we do want to stay conservative. We also have connect fees that go into here. As you can see down below, reimbursed developer 3201. This is the empirical contract. So it's going to have $750,000 in that 2,050,000. There's 750. That's just strictly empirical. And then we go back to $250 a year on developer reimbursements. We do collect sales tax, so we'll have a sales tax expense. You're going to see the 2 loans listed here with NextEra and then also the state of Kansas. So the state of Kansas is $10,074,120 and NextEra is 10. So then that takes your total funds available to $54,791,250.
Simone, I had a question on those loans. Are those, so when do the payments start? Have they already started and are they monthly or how do they start?
The NextEra ones, as I understand it, Mike, you can answer this too, it'll be included in our wholesale power costs.
Okay.
But the state of Kansas has not sent us their loan documents as of yet. But we did.
So would they give you 60 days, 90 days, or?
Was it 60?
For the state?
Yeah.
When they send you the documents, would we have 60 days?
Just, in the application, we agreed to the monthly fee, which comes to $500,000 per year. The NextEra fund is in the megawatt hour charge that we agreed to in the power contract. That actually went into effect March 1st. So we've already been paying a portion of that.
But hopefully the state will have their loan documents here to us, and if we have either that, maybe
Well, they've been busy.
they might just forget it.
They've been busy doing the revenue neutral things.
Yeah. Any questions on revenue in either year here? Okay, then in the electric additions, 411, in 2021, we have contractor expense both years at $950,000. We come down into material building, $300,000 this year. We've got we're working on some remodeling out at the utility service center, and there's $150,000 in there for remodeling office space that was the metering room to allow for more staff in there, and then we're taking it back down to $75,000 in the next year, in the 2022. Material traffic lights, we have $185,000 for 2022, and that is going to be the Fleming and
Spray roofs. Assuming that you guys give us direction to do that.
Oh. So that's $185,000 there. In material street lights, we have $125,000 both years. Coming down into material distribution, we have $1,225,000 in 2021 and $975,000 in 2022. And material substation, $1,025,000, and then it goes down to $345,000. Mike, if you want to explain some of these here, that'd be.
Sure, the material distribution, a big part of that is the distribution feeders that we're going to put in for empirical foods. They'll pay, what they've done, we've received half the cost of the electrical improvements. And so we told them as soon as you pay that, then they'll issue your building permit. Then we're going to bid the items out. When we know the bid, what that amount is, they have to pay us the additional amount, and then we'll go ahead and award those bids. So part of that, both in the distribution and in the substation costs, are empirical fees that they're actually paying for, but we have to show it as an expense.
And you won't know those exactly until you can actually get the bid? So these are just your best guess estimates? Okay.
And then going down into new equipment, other, in that line item, we have a half-ton pickup, and it replaces one, another half-ton that replaces, and then a digger derrick that replaces a 2014. So that makes up the $275,000. In in 2022. So we have total expenses in the additions area of $4,228,900 in 2021 and $3,583,000 in 2022. 412 is production. There's 5 full-time employees in this area, along with their benefits. So that comes to $525,600 in 2021 and $598,790 in 2022. The big expense in this area, of course, is going to be your wholesale electric in 2021. That's budgeted at $25 million. Then it goes down to $15,100 in 2022. We have the power supply long-term debt that we record in here, $4,174,450 in 2021 and 2022. This is where you're going to see your state low-interest loan payments. We've got a half year in 2021 at $502,500, and then $1,005,000 in 2022. So when you know you have those loan proceeds that came in, and you think you ought to end up with those at the end, you can't, because you're paying back principal and interest on them. So you have total expenses here of $30,590,550 in 2021 and $21,266,250 in 2022. In distribution, 413, we have 27 employees in this area. Total salaries and benefits in 2021 at $3,073,000, and in 2022, $3,707,400. These are your normal operating expenses in distribution going down the line here. There is street pole and lighting in street lights, and that's about, there's no new equipment in this area. So we have total expenses in distribution of $3,571,000, and then in 2022, $4,225,400. That takes care of all the personnel costs and electric. Now we go into commercial. This is where we have one of the transfers that goes to the general fund is for office salaries, and so that is 6% of the revenues goes in to the general fund for reimbursement of office salaries. So for 2021, that's $1,876,205, and then in 2022, it's at $2,038,500. And then the other expenses that come in here are the audit expense. We've got bank charges, collection fees, training, travel. Most all of the travel in 2021 we cut in half of what we normally would have. We're thinking people won't be able to start going to conferences and be live at those. But in 2022 we went back to the full travel and training expense. That's basically the highlights of the commercial area. It has total expenses of $2,502,200, and then $2,680,000 in 2022.
So I have a question. So, and for the Jameson Energy, has it been asked to be requested to be run lately, or, and if it does, where does the profit from that show up, or the, because I know that people paid in for that energy. Where does that show up on that? Is it just in the general?
No, it shows up as miscellaneous revenue, I believe, in the
electric.
Okay.
And we do run that from time to time. It's now with the energy costs so low, it's not cost effective for us. But we were called on last week to run one unit for 5 hours. And when SPP calls it, we run them, and then they pay for whatever our cost is plus some. So yeah, we don't run it nearly as much as we used to. Another reason that we don't run it as much is there used to be as part of the agreement between the electric is we could only generate so much electricity, we couldn't push any of it out. When we entered into the asset purchase agreement, we eliminated that. Now we can generate all we want, but so far we haven't had to do So when our load would increase before, we could only generate so much. Now we run all three of them every day, all day long, through all of them.
Thank you.
415 Sundry, this is where your consultant and engineering and legal fees are recorded. We also have the sales tax amount that is collected. We reimburse that to the state. And then in the transfer other funds, this is going to be what you would consider a franchise fee that any other utility would pay, and that's 5% of revenue. So for 2021, that amount is $1,605,500, and in 2022, it's $1,698,750. Then we do get to come in here and transfer to the reserve for the Jameson Energy Center at $1,005,000 in 2021 and $750,000 in 2022. That brings those total expenses in 2021 at $5,035,500, and in 2022, $4,403,750. And the final part of the electric fund is the debt service. This would be the principal and interest on the GO bonds that are currently issued. We're not anticipating any new issues in the electric area. This does include the asset purchase agreement, and so that is why those numbers are, higher than what you would normally have seen like in 2019. But those are included in there. So total debt service, we also have the Siemens payment for the energy performance contract. So we have total expenses in 2021 at $1,984,050, and in 2022, $1,835,700. So that shows total expenses for the electric fund in 2021 at $47,912,200. Carryover cash of $6,879,050. We're coming over here to total expenses for the electric fund in 2022 at $37,994,100. We're going to budget a carryover into 2023 of $4,259,950. Brings our total expenses to $42,254,50 with a zero cash balance. So you're getting your cash back to where you need to have it at the end of 22, but you still have debt payments to make. So you need to consider that when you're looking at your rates. Sure. So, Mike, is there anything you want to add on electric? No?
I don't think so, unless there's questions.
Okay, we can move right into Water and Sewer Fund 80. It carried over a good cash balance at $4,221,753 into 2021. We've got collections sewer in there at $3 million both years. We've got collections on our water at $6,900,000 in 2021, and we go up to $7 million in 2022. There is going to be a slight water increase over the next 3 years with the Wheatland contract. We have connect fees, county sewer fees, and fire leg fees come in here. We do have a land lease in here, and that is with DFA, so they're still under that land lease agreement. Penalties for late payment at 105 both years. Here's the reimbursed developer 3201. That is going to be your empirical contract. This year that's $3,227,000. And then we have a small amount in there for 2022 of $5,000. So there's where that big revenue.
Yeah, that's a big difference. Yeah.
Okay, sale of material. Okay, coming down here we have sewer tank fees. So these are all your normal revenues that you've seen in the past coming in. Total available is $17,883,000 for 2021 and $18,732,250 in 2022. Going into the expenses, we have in additions. These are mainly all of your normal expenses, with the exception of the material in equipment replacement wastewater treatment plant. You just heard Fred Jones talk about what he needed to replace out there, those generators. We budgeted those at $280,000, so the 345 should cover any increase that you would have in that. Total expenses and additions, $792,000 in 2021 and $553 in 2022. Okay, sewer maintenance has 3 full-time employees, along with their benefits. That is $158,550 in 2021 and $211,700 in 2022. And these are all your basic expenses that you've seen in the past coming through here, with the exception of new equipment others, $6,100.08 in 2022. That is going to be your combination truck. If somebody would like to talk about that.
That's the combination truck that you see that has the big reels on the front of it, that they put that hose in, it cleans and sewer mains. Also has a back trailer built right in so it can suck that stuff up and put it in there. We've rebuilt that existing truck once already, and it's worn out. It's time to move on. So they're very expensive, but it is what it is. If we don't do it, then, and there's no one else has one of those that can do everything that ours does here. Mayor Specialty Service out of Goddard could do it, but when we need it, it's like now, not in 4 hours. So
Probably everybody else needs it too. So.
yeah, that was put to use over the weekend.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
unfortunately.
Yeah.
So that has total expenses in 2021 at $252,050, and then in 2022, $726,700. 313 sewage plant, we have 10 full-time employees in that area. Total salaries are $721,250 in 2021 and $746,370 in 2022. Some of the larger expenses is your contract services with biosolids, utilities, electric, $330,000 this year, $350,000 next year. And going to the next page, new equipment is just $4,000, so there really isn't any. You've got your sewer maintenance is one of the largest ones at $205,000 with mayor. So the total expenses in 2021 is $1,570,250, and in 2022 $1,621,270. Now we get into production, 314. There's 4 employees in this area along with their benefits. 2021 total is $332,750. 2022 is $346,700. Your purchased water is your contract with Wheatland Electric, $1,800,000 in 2021 and $1,900,000 in 2022. You also have utilities, electric, one of the larger items. Coming down into new equipment, $30,000 this year is that for a pickup, Mike? I think it is.
For those jumping jacks in 2022?
Yes.
Yeah. Compaction, we don't need jumping jacks, compact it. When we dig up the street, we gotta compact it back.
So that has total expenses of $2,767,750 in 2021 and $2,841,200 in 2022. Water and sewer distribution, we have 10 full-time employees along with their benefits. 2021 is $778,200. 2022 is $794,700. You've got all your normal expenses coming through here. New equipment, we're looking at a heavy-duty mower and a Bobcat breaker in 2022. And then $70,000 is going to be a new service truck with a lift and a crane. Totals for 2021 is $975,000. 2022 is $1,037,200.
Pretty reasonable for a service truck. I'm surprised that it's that. I would expect more expense. So.
Oh, there's a lot of stuff on there, and that comes with That's the cab and the chassis and the utility bed, the lift thing, and that small crane on top. The hydraulic stuff that go on there. That's, you know, we think that's a pretty close number, but.
Yeah, that's
just
cheaper than I anticipated, so.
Yeah, I noticed that on the $10,000 mower and the breaker, that's in 2021. And
Yeah,
I made a mistake there, it said it was 22, so.
Yeah.
My fault.
No, that's my fault.
Okay.
We can. Okay, then in 316 commercial, this is another area where we transfer office salaries, so it's 6% of the revenues. So that's $626,050 in 2021 and $632,420 in 2022. This is revenue that goes to the general fund. It has the same expenses that you've seen coming out of it in previous years. So we have a total in 2021 of $799,050. 2022 is $802,660. And moving on to sundry, 317. We do have annual reporting that we do for the water analysis. We have engineering fees. And then we also have the transfer other funds, which is considered what we would call a franchise fee, 5% of revenues, so that's $521,700 in 2021, $526,800 in 2022. And then we go into debt service, 318. We do have GO bonds. He has recently issued in 2020 a $2 million portion of that bond is for the water line to go to Empirical. And we don't have anything proposed for this coming bond. So you have principal and interest here. So that brings total expenses in 2021 to $9,691,000. Carryover of $8,192. You have total expenses in 2022 of $10,197,100. Cash carryover into 2023 of $8,535,000, and total expenses showed at $18,732,250. The water fund is doing very well.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah. And there have been years that it hasn't, so. We do have reserve funds. So the Fund 81 is the wastewater repair and replacement. We put 5% of our revenues in there. We carried over $360,012 into 2021. We're anticipating transferring $155,000 to give us a cash balance at the end of 2021 of $515,000. Transfer $157,000 in 2022. Then we have cash carryover that we're showing at $672,012. This fund will be very handy when you have to go and issue possibly a revenue bond for an addition to the wastewater treatment plant. You might not have to fund a reserve that way. So if you can keep growing this, your bond proceeds won't have to be near as large. So just keep that portion in mind. And then Fund 82 is the water reserve. We have $1,264,399 carried over into this fund. We transferring from fees of $330,000 this year, $340,000 next year. We're thinking that we're going to have a cash carryover into 2023 of $1,934,399. That could be used for water mains if you have an unanticipated breakage. So at least you have those reserve funds in place. Water reuse utility, if we ever get into that business here soon, we just have a budget developed for it for, say $200,000 revenue this year and expense. We're just putting a number in there in case we start using it. So, and that's all I have for today. And
Thank you.
the rest of the questions?
Good job. Thank you. That's
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you. Except for the electric department. We'll work on it. The water's looking good. Yeah. Thank you.
Until next time.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lauren.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't see, thank you.
On item 12F. That's one that's on my agenda.
That makes a lot more sense since that was last meeting's. 12F, the governing body is asked to consider and approve one appointment to fill a vacancy on the Cultural Relations Board.
Hey, Ally.
Ally?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm coming before you again for another Cultural Relations Board appointment. Our Cultural Relations Board has done some additional recruiting and interviewing of members, so we are recommending Virginie Hall to be appointed to the open board position.
And her story was really,
That was excellent.
that's very, yeah, it's very appropriate. I would move that we appoint Virginia Cobb to the vacant position that expires December 2023.
There's been a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Ortiz. Any other discussion on that item? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. That item passed. Thank you.
Thank you.
The other two new business items are executive sessions. I don't anticipate any action being required following those executive sessions. So if the commission would like to do the consent agenda and then the commission reports, we can shut down the recording of the meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda I1 through 4. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Euler. Any discussion on that item? None being, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. That item passed. Commissioner reports. Commissioner Ortiz.
Yeah. So Public Works Appreciation Week this week, and there's been a lot of work going on in Garden City, and we would just love to thank every one of those team members that are out working, whether it be streets or making the parks look beautiful with trees or electric, boxes, services, all of that. We just appreciate the work that they do, and not only during the regular hours that a lot of us work, but also the after-hour work that they put in. So just like to give those special individuals a great effort, and what a wonderful work that they do for the city of Garden City. So other than that, I'd just like to encourage people to get out, enjoy the great weather, enjoy the moisture that God has created for us. It's never ending on just getting out and just feeling that, gorgeous weather that we have here in Garden City. So I just encourage everyone to get out and exercise and breathe a breath of fresh air. So that's all I have.
Commissioner Euler.
I did have a chance to see the video that Jamie put together for Public Works Week, and it's very well done. I enjoyed it. It was fun to watch. But it's true. I mean, gosh, I think Public Works is just one of those departments where you just take for granted that it's just there. But then when you see people out working, especially yesterday I was on Kansas Avenue and I saw the workers right there, and I saw this traffic going around them, and I thought, oh my gosh, they're really putting their lives at risk for some people. So thank you for everything that you guys do. I was also encouraged just to see all the people that participated in the Citizens Academy. I mean, I just think anything that we can do to be involved with the city departments and learn a little bit more. I think that when there's openings on the cultural relations boards or some of the other advisory boards that the city has, I just think it's a great opportunity to really get to know what we do here. And it's just another great opportunity to just serve. And I think that's, the basis behind, making sure you can give back to your community. So that's all I have.
I'm glad I made it this far because I can talk about Garden Rapids in the pre-meeting that we had there.
You did that on purpose.
You're welcome.
I was like, don't mention it because this is what I want to talk about.
I wanted to leave enough for you.
I did too. Same here.
No, it was really a pre-meeting out there led by Aaron. It's really amazing to see that project come along and go from concept to the feature that we have now that I believe will be a very big draw for the city. Well planned out. It's going to be really fun. Troy's going to go down the big slide block.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
It's going to be fun to watch that.
Yeah, that's right.
So glad to see that. And I just want to mention also that it's the end of the school year here coming up, so just keep in mind that there will probably be a lot more kids running around. So when you're driving, especially when you're not expecting kids to be around, because it's usually during the school day, pay attention while you're driving around. So that's it.
Yeah, it is hard going last, but I'm glad that Mayor gets to go last. I'll tell you, there is so much that the Public Works Appreciation Week. There are some incredible, really champions and heroes that many times you get forgotten, but they do a lot of work, as Commissioner Ortiz, in the night hours when we're all sleeping and it's all taken care of and you wake up and everything still works. So I do want to say thank you and how much we appreciate that. The Citizens Academy, with Public Works, I wanted to say that many people have been getting those water usage statements. It's really great information, and so I welcome people to come in and show me their statement and call, and but again, if you take it as information, and I always look at it, can I beat my year before? Now with the rain this year, I'll tell you, I'm way ahead on my water usage, so I'm excited about 2022's water usage report. In my last year, I struggled. But again, I think it's really great information, and so if you'll take that, but if you have questions, please call our water department or contact the city or contact one of the commissioners. We would be glad to discuss that with you. And again, just take that as information. I did want to say at the Citizens Academy, I asked one of the graduates, Karen, about what's her favorite. She's probably a politician because she said everything was awesome and excellent. And I said, well, that's really, that's safe right there. So, but the Citizens Academy takes you through something. When I went through it, really changed my perspective and my appreciation of the city and all the things that are happening. And so I'm excited for these new graduates and just the impact that they'll make in the city. I do want to say, I know Rick Camp and Linda are here today. They represent the Convention and Visitors Bureau Board, and so get ready for lots of visitors for Garden Rapids at the big pool. I notice we keep calling it the big pool, and that will forever be the big pool for all of us, but as Commissioner Dick said, there are some of the best views. You have to go up to the very height of the slide, so when you're up there, you can't go down. But you have to go down the slide, you can't walk back down. No, you can, I'm just kidding. But there are some incredible views of Garden City, and this year, Garden City looks greener than I can remember in many years. And my last thing is I know I've been contacted by lots of people about alleys and streets, and I know our Public Works Department are really working on making sure that they keep those improved. Right now, everything is mud, and so in the alleys, and I know that it might delay trash pickup, and then there's some alleys that they are having some serious issues. But I know that our Public Works Department is working on those, and so if you'll be patient, I know that there are some things in the works that hopefully make our alleys better. I personally am a fan of alleys. I love that our trash is kept in the alleys and out of sight, and you have these big, huge dumpsters. I don't know what I would do with those little poly carts. I think we fill one every day. So I just want to say, if you'll just be patient, and I know that as Commissioner Ortiz said, getting out and just enjoying our incredible trail system and our incredible sidewalks that we have all over town. So with that, I'm done.
Thanks. Going last always is kind of hard. Graduation, I did attend the Citizens Academy's graduation, a very good event. Great people in that program. Again, just showing our citizens how community our size operates. You flip a switch on, people don't think about that or turn the water on or, a lot of those things. And that really gives them a behind the scenes look at how a community our size really operates. Talking about graduation, Garden City High School graduation is this weekend. 10 o'clock is the Arts and Communications and the Public Service Academy. And then at 6 o'clock at the high school is the Trade and Health Academy graduation ceremony. And then at 1 o'clock is the Garden City Alternate Education Center and Virtual Education Center. So congratulations to all those seniors and their success, and hopefully wish them the well as they graduate and move on either to post-secondary education or a career. And that's really all I got. I know that I've been told a couple of times that I'll be the one going down these slides to test them out, so wish me luck on that. So on that note, yeah, I've been voluntold that I'm going to be doing that, so I'll try anything once. So, are we going to take a break and then go into executive session?
I could use a 5-minute break.
I would do that, and that'll kind of get us ready for the first one. We'll come back in 5 minutes, 10
Yeah.
minutes.
5 minutes?
5 minutes. I'll just make it 2:55. I'll just round it up a little bit. We'll be back in this session. We'll take a recess at this point. We'll be back at 2:55 for our executive session.